In this presentation, we'll look at general ledger master data. The general ledger is used to store the financial transactions of an organization. So that means it contains all the equivalent debit and credit entries. In the olden days, there used to be many journals where you individually write all the financial transactions and they're recorded and they're produced as finally the balance sheet and P&L statements. And this is stored in a large book and it was used to be called the general ledger. Now everything is computerized, so we move on to system-based general ledger. The general ledger consists of something called chart of accounts. You can divide the chart of accounts into different account groups. For example, if your balance sheet, it will consist in your balance sheet, it will consist of assets, liabilities, and equities. Under assets, you can have current assets and non-current assets and so on. Similarly, under liabilities also, you will have your current liabilities and non-current liabilities. And you can have different GL accounts, that's a general ledger accounts. You can also assign a code to those GL accounts so easily you can identify these accounts. And you can give a description to these accounts just like shown over here. Similarly, for your P&L statement, you can have revenue and expenses, and you can have multiple different type of revenue accounts, and you can assign a code to that, a unique code to that. Similarly, for expenses also, you'll have various type of expenses, and for each of those different type of expenses, you can assign a unique general ledger code. And then when you perform your financial transactions, you can record these against this general ledger code. And then the debits and credits will be automatically updated, and these will get updated in the final P&L statement and balance sheet statement. And that's how you produce your financial statement in the end. Now let's look at how we can structure the chart of accounts. For short, I'm just calling it COA or chart of accounts over here. So this is my balance sheet and my P&L statement. I divide into different categories and I can have different GL accounts under each of these categories. It's best that you have it in a proper structure so you can easily organize your general ledger accounts. I have 5 basic accounts in this example. I have created one chart of accounts called YCOA and I have made 5 account groups and I've given some short characteristics for this over here. One for assets, one for liabilities, one for equities, one for revenue, and one for expenses. So these 3 will form my balance sheet statement and these 2 will form my P&L statements. And you can see I've given a number range over here. Now you must ensure that these number ranges do not overlap between 2 different account groups. There must be unique number ranges for each of these account groups. For assets, I given a number range starting from 1 with followed by 5 zeros to 1 followed by 5 nines. So within this number range, I can define many different type of asset GL accounts. You can see some examples over here. I given an ID like this. For petty cash 101,000. For bank, I have given 102,000. For accounts receivables and so on. You can have up to maximum 10 characters for your number range. So you can have this example, I given 6 characters, but you can also have 8 characters or 9 characters or even 10 characters. It depends on your organizational complexity. If you have a large list of general ledger accounts and you have many different type of different segments, then you need to have a longer number range. But if you have fewer general ledger accounts and you don't have that many different groupings, then you can have a shorter number range. So it depends on how you want to keep it. In my example, when I'll be creating a chart of accounts and giving the number ranges, I'll use a 6-character number range. Now let's set up the chart of accounts. We come to the SPRO menu path and we come to financial accounting, general ledger accounting, master data, GL accounts, preparations, and we do the first step of the config, that is edit chart of accounts list. You can also use the short transition code OB13. Let's execute this transaction and it'll bring you to the screen over here. You can see all the existing list of chart of accounts, and I'm going to create a new chart of accounts. I'm going to click on new entries and I'm going to give it a name. You cannot use an existing chart of account which is already there in the table, so I'm going to give a new name over here. I'll call it as M000 and I'll say M chart of account. Just give it a description over there. And then the maintenance language, which language is going to be, I'm going to choose English. And this way you specify the length of the GL account number. So you can use up to maximum 10 characters. I'm going to put the length 10 digits. I'm going to put it as 6 digits just to make it easy for me. And I'm not going to use any group chart of account. So just leave that blank and simply save the transaction. That's all you got to do. and you get a transport request, just press OK to continue. So now you have created your chart of accounts with the ID. Then just click on back twice and you come to the initial SPRO menu path over here. And then let's do the next step, that is to assign the company code to the chart of accounts. OB62 is a short transaction code for that. Let's click on that and we'll assign the company code we have created. If you have created multiple company codes, then you must ensure those company codes you assign to the relevant chart of accounts. So I'm going to click on position. I have already created one company code called M001. Just going to search for that. Pops up over here, and then going to specify my chart of accounts over here. So you can assign multiple company codes to the same chart of accounts. So you can see this example, multiple company codes has been assigned to these BKMG chart of accounts. So I'm just going to use this, the one I just created now, and simply select save. This will also generate a transport request. Just press OK to continue, and you can go back to the main screen again just by clicking on back. Now the next setting is to define the account group. The short transaction code for this is OBD4. So I'm just going to execute this transaction over here, go to new entries, specify my chart of accounts. I'm going to specify my chart of accounts I just created now, M000 account group. So if you can recall from the slides earlier that I created 5 account groups for my example. ASST for assets. So I'm just going to call that over here, ASST, and call it as assets. And then from, I'm going to give a number range. So the number range I have given in my example earlier was 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nines. That is because the 6-digit GL account number, so that's the range I'm going to give. So within this range, I can create all the balance sheet assets related GL accounts. Similarly, I got to do for the others as well. Next one I'm going to create is for liabilities. I'm going to call it LIAB over here. Here it is, and then I'm going to give the 2 series number range 2 1 2 3 4 5, and here I'm going to call it 2 1 2 3 4 5. There it is. I given a number over there. Another one M000, and this is for equity, so I'm going to call it equi over here. Equities. That is, let's put a U over there, and then here I'm going to give the number range here as well 1 2 3 4 5. And actually I'm going to start this with a 3 because it should not overlap, very important. And here I'm going to give the number over here 1 2 3 4 5. That is 2 more to go. M000. Next one is for revenue, so I'm going to call it as REVS, revenues, 4 series this time. And another one I'm going to put it as 4 1 2 3 4 5. That is M000, and here I'm going to put another one EXPS for expenses, and here I'm going to call it with the 5 series, and there you go, 5 1 2 3 4 5, all done. And then simply press save to save the transaction. There'll be a config, so you get a transport request over there, and just go back to the main screen. Next step is to define the retained earnings account. The retained earnings account is another general ledger account, which is in your income statement, your revenues minus expenses, whatever the net profit or loss you get carries forward to the balance sheet under the equity section. That is called retained earnings. So I'm going to put this, create a GL account. I'm going to first define a GL account and then later create it. It's going to start with a 3 because it's going to be under my equity section. So let me execute that. Specify my chart of accounts, all good. And here I can have multiple P&L statement types and have different accounts for that, but I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to call my P&L statement account type X, make it easy like that. And here I'm going to specify the retained earnings account. I have not created this yet, but I'm going to specify that over here. 302123. This is the number I'm going to give for my retained earnings account. I'm just going to make sure it starts with 3 because it's going to come under my equity section. And now ultimately you can see the system has put chart of accounts M000. The transaction, this is a specific transaction code within the system called BIL, which stands for balance carried forward. This is all system config, so you don't have to worry anything about that. Simply specify a letter or some kind of a ID for P&L statement account and your retained earnings account, and then save the transaction. So you can see a message is coming, it's not created, that's fine. We'll create that later. And that's done. You can go back to the main screen. Now I'll create the GL account for retaining earnings account. I can create it via this SAP Easy Access menu path by going through accounting and then going to general ledger, master data and go like that. Or if I know financial accounting and then go to general ledger. Or if I know the transaction code, I already know the transaction code that is FS00. I can type it in here and go as well. If you have Fiori apps enabled, then you can go and create it via a Fiori app for the general ledger master data. So I'm going to show you this method first, FS00. And here I'm going to specify the GL account 3020000, specify my company code M001, and I'm going to select here because I want to create it new. So just going to say company code is not assigned to a field status variant. So there is one more config we got to do. Let's do that. So to define the field status variant and assign our company code to that, we come to financial accounting global settings, ledgers, fields, customer fields, and then sorry, under directly the fields itself you get define field status variants, and you can assign the company code to field status variants. The short transition code for this is OBC4 and OBC5. Usually the last four characters are the short transition codes, but in some cases it won't be, but most of the time it will be like that. So let's look at define field status variant. We don't have to define our own one, we'll just look at one existing in the system. So you can see there's already one with 1000 field status GL accounts, and you can just go into that, and this is getting a bit more technical, but let's just look at that field status variant. We can select it and it has different type of field status groups underneath that. So I'm just going to select that, select it over here, field status group, and then you'll get all different type of GL account groups like secondary GL, general ledger, standard one, cost accounts, bank accounts, material accounts. These are all something called field status group. When you create a GL master data, you will find there's option called field status group. Underneath each field status group, there are subsections which controls that when you post some items in your general ledger, it will control what kind of fields are mandatory or optional and hidden and so on. So we're going to go a bit more technical with that. If I just double click on this, it'll take you to another screen. For example, in general data, it will tell you that when you're trying to post a financial document, which are the fields are hidden, suppress means hidden, which are mandatory and which are optional. So here you can see assignment, text, invoice, refund, these are all optional entries, and some items are hidden. You can see it's under suppressed. And you can just press page down in your keyboard, and it can take you, if there's any more other pages, it'll take you. Now there's only one page, so it just died as it is. And you can check some other fields also. So this is what control the field status. Again, it is going a bit more technical. We'll look at this later when we go into our advanced presentations, which will come up later in the course. So now let's get back and we'll assign the field status variant 1000 to our company code M001. So let's do that setting now. And just come back to the main screen again. That is the next step we're going to do, OBC5. Now let's assign the company code to the field status variant. So I'm just going to select this option over here, and then I'm going to go to my company code, click on position, type in M001, M001, press OK to continue, and here I'm going to specify my field status variant 1000. That's the one I just showed you a little while ago. Press save, creates a transport request, and press OK to continue. So now I assign my field status variant to my company code. Now let's check out the create GL account again. I have specified the GL account company code, and I'm going to select this button over here to create a new GL account. This is going to create my retained earnings account, which I've already specified. So GL account type, if you just scroll down, you will find these options, whether it's going to be a balance sheet account, P&L account, there's going to be a this is not a P&L account, it's actually some P&L account, but it's not going to be a cost element. We'll come to that later. This is the P&L account, primary cost or revenue, and then you have something called a secondary costs. So we'll look at cost elements later in the upcoming presentation. Now to keep it simple, now we are going to create this retained earnings account under the equity section. So it's going to be a balance sheet account. So our choice is simple, it's a balance sheet account. Then let's go to the account group. Now we have created 5 account groups, so those should come up when you click over here. Let's see the options coming up. So assets, equities, expenses, liabilities, and revenue. So this is going to come under the equity section because we have specified the three series, and it's going to select equities over there. Short text, I'm going to call it here retained earnings. And here I'm going to call it retained earnings account. There it is. We go to the next tab, that is the control data tab. And here you can see account currency by default is coming up here. This USD is coming up based on the chart of accounts currency as well as the company code currency. That's going to come up here USD. It's going to click on balances in local currency only because most of the time my return earnings account is going to come in local currency. Generally, all your balance sheet accounts, you can just tick this balances in local currency only. Now let's go to the next section. Tax category, I'm not going to specify anything over here. We'll come to all of these sections later when you create those relevant GL accounts. I'm not going to specify anything here as well. Let's go to the next section, create bank interest tab. And once you go there, here you can see the field status group. Now this is where we went and saw in that short transaction code OBC4 in the SPRO menu part, where there were multiple field status available. So if we just select that, we can choose an appropriate field status group that controls what kind of fields are mandatory, optional, or hidden when we post a financial document. So in that field status group, we can select there will be multiple options coming up, and we'll select a suitable option. Here you can see this. If you can recall, a few seconds ago, we saw all these lists when you went into that define field status group section. So I'm just going to go with the simple one here, general, just to make it easier, and then simply save the transaction. And that will create a GL account. You can see data is saved. So now this 302,000,000 retaining earnings GL account has been created. Now let's revisit the define account group section. If you can see the menu path is over here. We have already configured this, so let's just quickly go into that and then go to position, specify our chart of accounts M000, and that will bring up all these account groups we have created already. Now let's see this account group, what does it do? First, it controls the number range. So when you specify an account group, for example, we have specified the account group called equity, and we have given the number range as 300,000 to 399,999. So you can only create a GL account within this number range. So that's why we chose to create 302,000, which falls within this range. Now inside this equity section, you cannot create something like 502 or 511 or anything like that other than this number range. So first thing it controls is the number range of the GL account. This to ensure that users don't accidentally create a wrong type of account within these ranges. Second thing it controls is the field status of the general ledger master data. So we saw how we can create a general ledger master data using that FS00 transaction. Now let me quickly double click this line and see what comes up. So what I'm going to do is actually just going to select this. Okay, that is, that's how we can select it. And then we'll click on this option, field status. And you can see you're coming to this kind of a screen over here. And there are multiple options here, something called account control, account management, document entry, and so on. So let's look at this account control. So this shows what are the fields are optional, hidden, mandatory, or just simply grayed out displaying. So you can see there are some fields like currency, tax category, reconciliation account, all of these fields. I hope you can recall that when we created the GL master data, we saw some of these fields coming up in the system, but we did not fill them up. Let's see, recall some other fields. So we come to account management over here, open item management, sort key, and so on. I'm sure you can recall whether we have seen these fields or not. If you have a doubt, open another screen like this. Go to the transaction code FS00, press enter to continue. Look at the GL account we have created. The last you created GL account will automatically come up, so you can just look into that and just have it on another section or in another window. And then you can see where are these fields, open item management, sort key, and so on. It should have come under probably the control data section. So let's go to that. And you can see here account management in company code. So it's given a subheading. That subheading usually matches with the subheading over here. And if you just scroll down, let me just scroll it down using this. There it is. And you can see these options are coming here: open item management, sort key, authorization group, clerk abbreviation. So it's on here, it's showing this all optional entries. So it was optional for us also when we were trying to create these GL accounts. So that's what this field status control. The field of the account group controls the master data of the GL account. Don't get confused with the field status group, which comes up under this section. This field status group controls the document entry line items fields. That one we'll look at it later. That's a bit more advanced. For now, we are sticking with GL master data. So the GL master data account groups control two things. One is a number range. Then another one is the field status of the master data. So we saw one section over here. The other section, let's just go back, called account control. So account control was, you can see currency and all of these things should be at the top over here. Account control. It's going to move that up over here. There it is. Currency, tax category, reconciliation account, all of these stuff are inflation key tolerance group. All of these are marked as optional over here. So it will be optional for our GL master data as well. And there are some other fields also, you can check it up. And let's go back to the main screen. So very important, account group controls number range and then the field status of the general ledger master data. Now let's look at the type of chart of accounts. There are mainly three different type of chart of accounts. The one we've been creating is called operating chart of accounts. That's the example I've shown previously. There's another type of chart of accounts called country chart of accounts. This country chart of accounts, what it does is that if your operating chart of account does not satisfy, you can create another alternative chart of accounts called country chart of accounts. But this is rarely used, so we'll just stick to our standard operating chart of accounts. Then another commonly used chart of account is called group chart of accounts. This is useful if you're a multinational company and let's say, for example, your head office is in the US, but you have different countries where your operations are enabled. And in each of those countries, you have your own operating chart of accounts because they have their own company codes and those company codes deal in different currency other than USD. For example, in the UK, they deal in Great British pounds. In France, it's in euro, and in Germany also it's in euro. So those countries deal with their own currencies and they will have their own operating chart of accounts. What you can do is you can create a group chart of accounts and then in the GL master data, you can specify the group chart of accounts in the main tab over there. So whenever the entries are posted, you will get the posting happening in their native currency chart of accounts, which is in the native currency. Like for example, for UK, the amounts will be posted in GBP. However, at the same time, because you have specified the group chart of accounts, which is in USD, then you will automatically get your translation in USD, and you can see your that particular country's progress using your own chart of accounts and see it at a USD currency view. Also, if you're sometimes as a multinational organization, you might want to see everything at a higher level view as well. For example, in the UK, they might have different type of pension accounts. And in France, they might have different type of pension accounts. In Germany also, they might have different pension accounts and they might call it different names. However, in the US, you can have one common account called pension account and use that as a group chart of accounts to all of these other individual pension accounts. So again, it's mainly done for group reporting, just by the name suggests over here. Next, let's look at assignment of chart of accounts. You can assign one company code to one chart of accounts. So in this example, there is one New Zealand company. I have assigned that to one New Zealand chart of accounts. Then you have the option of assigning multiple company codes to the same chart of accounts as well. So here you can see multiple company codes. These are all Australian companies, there are three different companies. They all use the same Australian chart of accounts. This is the general structure of a multinational organization, where sometimes in one country you might have only one company operating, sometimes another country might have multiple companies operating, but then you all use the same, that particular country's chart of accounts. And then these two are linked to the main group chart of accounts for your group reporting. So in this presentation, we saw how we can set up the main configurations to create the GL master data. First, we define the chart of accounts, we define the account groups, we assign the chart of accounts to a company code, we created a retained earnings account, we also created we assign the field status group to the company code, and then we proceeded to create the GL master data. In my presentation, I showed an example how to create the retained earnings GL master data. If you have previous experience creating multiple GL accounts, then please proceed to create GL accounts for each of your account group. That is for your assets, equities, liabilities, revenues, and expenses. But if you don't have experience, don't worry. In our upcoming presentations, we'll be creating more and more GL accounts. So you will have a hang of how to create for different type of account groups.